Welcome back. Joining me is Samantha Birk, Associate Director for Instructional Technologies with the Center for the Enhancement of Learning and Teaching at IPFW, and she's here to talk about Project Mobile EDU at IPFW. Sam, thanks for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
You know, we're going to stretch the boundaries of Arts Weekly a little bit. We're going to talk about the creative ways in which professors at our university in particular are using technology to explore different ways of teaching. And you know, at the point of this taping, nearly 160 faculty members have iPads that they're using in the classroom and in their research, and they're developing apps, and everybody's going iPad crazy right now.
Oh, yeah.
But what is Project Mobile EDU at IPFW?
Well, Project Mobile EDU came out of a series of once-a-month faculty forums that our Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs, Dr. Bill McKinney, started last year. And it's actually part of a much larger program that's national for the American Association of State Colleges and Universities that sort of put before these colleges, and there's about 451 of them, of reimagining or looking at how do institutions like IPFW educate 21st century students for the 21st century world, and to really kind of revision that. And so Dr. McKinney has been having these dialogues with the faculty on a whole wide range of topics. And you know, one of the focuses is how, you know, what does IPFW do, you know, with these students? And out of those conversations have come several projects and things. And one of them is this Project EDU. Mobile EDU, which is looking at mobile technology in terms of how does it help support teaching, learning, and research. And so what we started, which actually got launched last April when the first call for proposals went out to the faculty, we asked them wanted them to take a look at this device and see where the faculty saw it in terms of positioning in the classroom, redefining a curriculum, helping with research, helping with student engagement. And so the call went out, and we had about 75 faculty that responded to the first one. And we were able to seat into a cohort 60 in the fall.
I see. Well, what are we finding out about the different ways students are learning or predicted to learn in the 21st century I guess that we didn't know before this technology came into being? How is it affecting learning?
Well, I think one of the things that the technology is affecting is its mobility. I think a lot that's driving it is the smartphone market. I mean, students and you know, most all of us these days have a smartphone. You know, it's like having a little computer in your pocket where you can not only make phone calls, but you know, you can see your calendar, you can get on the internet and look up something, book tickets to something like the Philharmonic, perhaps. And you know, how our young people are using it are ways to communicate with each other through Facebook. And there's a Twitter, which is, you know, you can kind of follow what people are thinking. And so, you know, this idea of always being plugged in and the easy accessibility of information, I think, is part of one of the things that's on the cornerstone of this. So when you start to look at this mobility piece, you start to look at, you know, how do we manage and acquire information? How do we process it? How can we help collaboration? And I think that's a really big, important piece. I met with some students yesterday, as a matter of fact, or the other day, and you know what they were talking about was the ability for them to collaborate with their peers in classes, outside of classes, in ways that I think some of us maybe not even really thought about. So the mobility piece, I think, really kind of gets students with where they're at. You know.
What's the difference between an e-textbook and a regular textbook? Is an e-textbook a textbook or a book that you read on your iPad or Kindle? Is that just the same thing as a textbook, except on an electronic device, or is it completely different?
Well, that's kind of a range of question there. From a content perspective, yes. I mean, for the majority, a book that you get like on a Kindle or you read on your iPad, you know, the content is the same. And even right now, a lot of those books have the same sort of, you know, look and feel. You kind of swish your finger and you turn the page and stuff. But what's really interesting is some of the conversations that even some of our faculty are having of what's going to happen to the book in the digital age. You know, is it going to be this, you know, swish of a finger and you turn the page, or is it going to become something that's much richer, where you can now tap on a word and get a definition, or you can tap on a word and it will take you to an animation that maybe illustrates the idea, or something that you can take your finger and manipulate and turn around in. So that's, what happens, and this is some of the things that the faculty are talking about, is what happens when a book becomes an app, which an app is like a little piece of software that runs on these devices that oftentimes are, not necessarily a whole lot of money necessarily.
So a lot of them are free.
A lot of them are free.
Yeah. I saw some of these e-textbooks in action because a number of our faculty are using them. And they're a lot more than just reading a book. You can actually leave notes on it for other students to read. So you could actually be reading together or studying together, but one person can have their own e-textbook and they could be in one place and the other student can be in another place. The professor can actually go into individual students' textbooks and say, this is the part that I want to emphasize for the text. It seems to be connected.
That's part of that socialness.
It's social networking and a book. And
a book.
And like I say, and you can click on a link and get more information on the web. So it just seems to be a whole lot more expansive.
It is. And it comes down to, how do we help our students better, be connoisseurs of information.
Like in our music department, we're using an e-textbook where you can, not only read about what a sonata form is, for instance, but you could actually see the music right there on the screen. You can click on it, you can hear it, and you can hear it and follow the music as it's going along on the score.
Yep.
And if you want more information, you can click somewhere and hear the whole symphony.
Right.
And I mean, what a way to learn.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the
and
things.
You can do it on your iPhone or your iPad or anything.
Well, I like my iPad because it's a little bit bigger screen than my iPhone. But that's one of the things, that's part of what this device is about. It's that social networking, that connectivity, that ability to really expand and leverage what this new technology is offering. That ability for you to actually see. I remember when I sat in my music appreciation, I think we got cassette tapes, but to actually be able to listen to it and then see where the music notes are, I think actually draws down a different reality for the student that might be, like in a music appreciation course. They start to see what they're listening to.
Exactly. It involves more senses. I remember in college, if you wanted to study, and if you wanted to study in a group, you had to make sort of accommodations with the library and have a room, and then you and your friends would go and you'd all read the book together, and you'd underline and you'd share and you'd make notes in preparation for the test. Now you don't have to be all together in the same room. You can simply get on the book and say, oh, this is what Samantha says about this chapter. Oh, that's very, very interesting. My job is maybe to specialize in this other chapter for the test. And that's the way students study.
And you could be sitting in Fort Wayne, and I could be sitting in Wabash, or somebody else could be sitting in someplace else in the United States, and we're all kind of contributing together. And the nice thing about the iPad is that also doesn't mean that you have to be sitting at a computer.
Right.
As long as you can get on the internet, I could be sitting, I could be going to a conference, or I could be visiting my folks.
How are changing the topic a little bit to how our professors are using the iPad and mobile technology to do research? Give us some examples of some of the exciting things that people are doing.
Well, one of the things about the iPad, and there's some faculty in biology, I think, that are doing some pretty exciting stuff. I know there's some faculty in the art department that are also fine art department, or the visual communication and music departments that are doing exciting stuff. In biology, what they're looking at is using the iPad out in the field, so that the student, would have their lab manual here on the iPad, and then they can go out and use the camera that's part of the iPad to take photographs in the field, and then bring it back into the lab to do what they need to do, collect the data on the iPad. I know that Chris Rutowski was one of your guests, and he's a musician here, and he's actually been using his iPad in part of his performances, to help manipulate, some of the instruments and things like that. We have people that are also looking at designing for the iPad. Designing interfaces and apps for the iPad that can be used, to support teaching, to support learning.
We're actually designing an app for this very show.
See?
Should premiere very soon. A couple of students are working on it.
And that's great experience. And one of the things that I've noticed that have come out of the project, and I would imagine this is part of what you're seeing with your students, is this great collaboration across disciplines. We've got computer science people that are talking to visual communication and design people we have philosophers that are talking with people in physics. So that's really, and the students are starting to do that too.
Yeah.
I know we have a collaboration that's starting up between a student in visual communication and design and a student in computer science. And they're looking at buying apps or working on developing apps together. So where one is able to provide the technical programming behind it,
yes,
the other one can help, so that people like you and I can use it.
We're getting back to the whole collaboration and the collaborative nature. How important is it, I think, to the future workforce, for example, for students to come out of college knowing how to work with other people from diverse disciplines? Like you just mentioned, here's an artist working with a computer science major, and I know that because that's those two people are designing apps for this show right now. I just think that's fascinating, and it's not an experience that I had in college. But I think this technology is bringing people together in that way.
It is, and I think if you look at not only our the workforce, as they get out of here, what are companies and what are potential employers looking for, is that ability for people to work collaboratively, to be able to work in a team, to be able to work with people that come from different perspectives, different backgrounds.
Right.
In order to get to whatever that end goal is that the employer is looking, that's essential. And I think we hear that more and more as a university that that's what we're wanting. That's part of the challenge of how do we educate 21st century students.
Right, because you're going to have to work in groups and teams.
Absolutely.
Get a bigger brain that way.
Exactly.
I just saw a fascinating demonstration by one of our philosophy professors where students are working with iPads and almost instead of handing in or doing presentations or writing papers, are actually demonstrating philosophical thoughts by doing videos and cartoons, and they're all sharing that on their iPads. Tell us a little bit about that.
One of the things we did with this first project in the fall is we had one faculty member in philosophy, Dr. Joyce Lazier, who put together a proposal as kind of a little baby proof of concept for a history of modern philosophy class. And so what we did is we loaned them some iPads. And one of the things that she was looking at a couple things. One of them was student collaboration. Another thing was, helping students understand the process of good research and writing. And, and part of that process of writing is actually reading your paper out loud.
Right.
That's
how you know how bad a writer you can be sometimes.
Exactly, and especially when you have to listen to yourself.
Yeah.
So throughout the class, they've been using the iPad in a whole host of ways. I mean, all of their textbooks are on the iPad. They're all electronic books.
Yeah.
They're able to sit in class and immediately go out, and all of them get the exact same book.
Wow.
To be able to do this. They're able to collaborate on ideas. Yeah. And their culminating project is a research paper that they not only have to write, but then they have to read it into the iPad using an app.
Oh my gosh.
And put it together using an app called iMovie. So it's like making little mini documentaries. So they have to not only read the text, and they understand, kind of where their logic breaks down, but then they also have to match up images.
Well, I tell you, that's the class that I want to sign up for because that sounds fun.
Me too.
But we're all out of time here on Arts Weekly. Sam, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much.
For more information about Project Mobile EDU, visit ipfw.edu/mobileedu. Arts Weekly airs every Tuesday through Thursday on College Access Television and most Sundays on WFWA PBS 39. You can also see us on YouTube and Facebook and follow us on Twitter. I'm Chuck O'Connor. Thanks for tuning in to Arts Weekly. Join me next week with Leslie Horman and Harvey Cox from the Fort Wayne Youth Theater and Charles Shepard from the Fort Wayne Museum of Art.